Another key inflation report has been released this morning, showing another economic win for President Trump. Also, the judge out of Wisconsin is pleading not guilty as she attempts to claim judicial immunity. And the Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments in regards to birthright citizenship.
Key inflation report just released shows wholesale inflation cools more than expected. April's producer price index shows it's down by 0.5% from March, which is better than what economists predicted. Year over year, prices for domestic manufacturers are up 2.4%, which is also better than expected. And right now, Fed Chair Jerome Powell is delivering remarks on the state of the economy, and investors are, of course, listening very closely.
Now, this is another huge economic win for President Trump because what does it do? It rebukes what Democrats, mainstream media, and the experts, including economists, continue to claim, which is President Trump's tariffs, is going to cause record inflation. And so what I want to do is use Ground News to cover the facts about this story. If you want to check this out for yourself and do your own research, just go to ground.news/Devori. Now, fact number one, as you guys heard, the producer price index declined by 0.5%, marking its largest monthly decrease since 2020. And secondly, of course, what do economists say as a response? Tariffs have not yet affected prices, but expect impacts to emerge later in 2025, making the trade war's full inflation effect uncertain. Of course they would say that. Now, let's hear more from Fox on this.
This is really what it costs you to make things. And when you put this with some declining inflation numbers from earlier in the week and then of last week, and egg prices are down. A lot of these headlines have been, to the sideline right now. But you guys are watching at Fox Business. What is your sense about where this thing is going
Bill,
right now?
I think this is a huge number. I mean, we were expecting an increase in producer prices, and in fact, we got a decrease, down 0.5%. That means it is cheaper for producers to make those products, meaning they're probably not going to pass on price increases at the cash register. Right. Yes, we got a better than expected consumer price index earlier in the week, and then this producer price index just shows you that the efforts to bring down oil prices and food prices are working.
Now, when we put this show together every single day, we're always having to figure out who do we believe and what is the truth. This is why we use Ground News to help us do that. Again, go to ground.news/Devori. It's going to help you do your own research because it shows you what both sides are saying. Let me give you an example. Here's the Associated Press. U.S. wholesale prices dropped 0.5% last month, despite President Trump's tariffs. You see how they like to frame it there? And here's the Western Journal. Expert economists proven wrong. Wholesale prices drop amid Trump's tariffs. And here's the other thing about mainstream media. Sometimes one side refuses to report on a story, and Ground News will help you see that. It's called blind spot. Bottom line here is we love using this tool. It helps us see exactly what's going on. You make up your own mind. You do your own research. But to accomplish that, you got to use a tool like Ground News. So if you want to use this tool for yourself, all you have to do is go to ground.news/Devori, or you could download the mobile app. Just use promo code Devori, and it's going to give you access to everything that I showed you in this video, including 40% off the Vantage plan.
Oil cracked $60 a barrel the other day. We're back above 60 right now. But the cost of transporting all of these products is a key issue in terms of producer pricing. So better than expected. I'm surprised we're not seeing a bigger market impact. And I think the reason is that now investors are solely focused on the big, beautiful bill, getting the tax cuts extended, and whether or not we're actually going to see Congress's deadlines, get that House bill passed by Memorial Day, get it to the Senate by July 4th. I will tell you this. I spoke with James Lankford today. Senator Lankford said he's looking at the end of July, not July 4th, to get that bill on President Trump's
desk. Could be a
desk.
long, hot summer if that's the case.
Even if they're able to do that by the end of July, it's pretty good.
Well, it's pretty good, but don't forget, the big issue here is the so-called X date. That is when the country runs out of money. And the fact that the $5 trillion increase in the debt ceiling is involved in this bill, that's what has lots of these members in Congress at odds. They don't want to raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. I suspect they're going to have to in order to get this thing passed.
We have to understand that the left is going to continue to claim that President Trump and these tariffs are going to drive up inflation and hurt American consumers. And of course, when they say that, they forget what took place over the past 4 years. Here's another thing that you guys should probably know. Prices for traveler accommodation services and airline passenger services have declined. Also, energy prices have declined by 0.4% in April, with gasoline prices falling by 2.1%. The bottom line is that this demonstrates that wholesale inflation is not only under control, but decreasing and going in the right direction. And so just maybe Democrats should stop saying that the sky is falling. Okay, let's just be real here. In other breaking news, the judge out of Wisconsin who was arrested, as you guys know, for helping illegal aliens evade arrest, is in court today. You won't believe what she has chosen to plead. Take a look.
Yeah, Bill, good morning to you. We're outside the federal courthouse here in Milwaukee, and you can see there is yet again another crowd of protesters that have been out here over the last couple of weeks on a regular basis protesting the arrest of Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan. Today, not only is Judge Dugan expected to plead not guilty, but her legal team is hoping that the entire case against her gets dismissed. In a legal motion filing yesterday afternoon, they argue that Judge Dugan cannot be prosecuted because she's entitled to judicial immunity for her official acts, which they argue includes controlling her courtroom by removing anyone who could disrupt it, which they argue would apply if she did in fact allegedly help an illegal immigrant escape arrest by guiding him to leave out a back door. And with no shortage of irony, her defense team repeatedly cites in that motion the Supreme Court's ruling last year in a case against then former President Trump, including this line from the High Court's decision. Judges are entitled to absolute immunity for their judicial acts without regard to the motive with which those acts are allegedly performed.
Okay, so you just can't make this up. Let's address a couple of things. Number one, they're totally wrong. Judicial immunity does not grant that judge the ability to break the law and get away with it. Number two, the Supreme Court's ruling on President Trump at that time, they were referencing official acts as president. It does not protect them from criminal or corrupt behavior. And number three, this wouldn't be the first judge that has been sent to prison for breaking the law.
Yeah, and again, this is just the latest protest we have had here in Milwaukee since Judge Dugan's arrest. Around 150 so people that are out here this morning, and this group has been steadily growing over the last hour. They are calling for these charges against Judge Dugan to be dropped. She is facing up to 6 years in prison if convicted.
In case you didn't know, she probably will not be convicted because back in 2018, there was a judge out of Massachusetts who did the same thing. And yes, the Trump administration did take her to court. And in the end, there was a deal that was made where she was not convicted and she did not have to go to prison. So we'll see what happens in this situation. Now, what's interesting about this next story is President Trump gave a rally speech to service members in Qatar, and mainstream media really didn't cover it. So I'm going to play a clip for you and also talk about some of the new developments, which is more good news for President Trump and our country. Let's take a listen at this clip.
My trip is 4.5 days, but this is the one I was so looking forward because I'm with the people that I really love and respect. We love and respect you. This is what you're doing, the service you do for your country. You keep us safe. There is no more important profession. And I was so proud to see those reports coming in just a few days ago saying that the enrollment is at the highest level ever, especially when I had to suffer running against a group of people that were very inappropriate, where they allowed that reputation of what you stood for and what you stand for to deteriorate to a point where we weren't able to recruit. So just remember this, you have a job now that everybody wants. Everybody wants to be doing what you're doing. It's a special job, and I'm so proud. When I saw those numbers come across the board that we set the record for enrollment in the military, and we took that from the exact opposite just 6 months before, I was very, very proud of that. We have a great country. We have a proud country. We have a country that's respected all over the world. And as I said before, a year ago we were laughed at, but nobody's laughing at our country anymore. We're the most respected country anywhere in the world. And thank you very much, and enjoy your lives, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and the point that the president is making here is when you go woke, you go broke. Okay, everybody's heard that term. Having served in the military, it's so true. Soldiers do not want to hear about LGBTQ, white rage, and DEI programs. They want to know how can they be more efficient at their job. They want to know how can I advance in my rank. They want to be able to complete the mission and be able to do it with their brothers and sisters. That's it. All this other stuff is a distraction. So it's really good that we're getting back to that. And the numbers show that it's a good thing. And also during this trip, the president has been able to secure further investment exceeding the $1 trillion that was reported yesterday. They are now saying that it could get up to $2 to $3, $4 trillion at most. Take a listen.
He was escorted again by fighter jets as he descended into the airspace there in the United Arab Emirates. And he talked a lot about, especially on Air Force One, as he traveled over to Abu Dhabi, about what he calls an amazing trip. He says they were able to raise trillions of dollars. Earlier, Trump said that the Gulf tour could now raise a total of $3.5 or $4 trillion. Initially, the White House was just hoping to walk back to Washington with $1 trillion. He talked about, of course, that order for Boeing jets, about 200 new planes he was talking about. We broke that news here first on News Nation. And he also talked about how these nations were going to be captured in the standpoint of trade by China. And he says now they will not. So a lot of the focus here on strengthening those economic ties with these nations.
Okay, there are really two big things that we should pay attention to. One, mainstream media's refusal to cover this trip in the right way. And two, the amount of respect that I guess the Middle East truly has for President Trump and our country. I mean, think about how they rolled things out for Biden. Oh, yeah, that's right. They didn't. And I think that is something also the media wants to ignore. Now, let's go to our next breaking news story, and that is the Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments in regards to birthright citizenship. Now, this entire morning has not been on the merits around or surrounding birthright citizenship. It's been on the fact that lower court judges can issue nationwide injunctions. Now, here is Justice Jackson actually agreeing with that, and she loves that that happens. Take a look.
I would think we'd want the system to move as quickly as possible to reach the merits of the issue and maybe have this court decide whether or not the government is entitled to do this under the law. Wouldn't having universal injunctions actually facilitate that? It seems to me that when the government is completely enjoined from doing the thing it wants to do, it moves quickly to appeal that, to get it to the Supreme Court, and that's actually what we would want. What I worry about is similar to what Justice Kagan points out, is that if the government is saying no lower court can completely enjoin it, it actually means that the government just keeps on doing the purportedly unlawful thing, and it delays the ability for this court to reach the underlying issue.
Now, I was actually listening to this entire hearing live as it was happening, and I have one main takeaway. I actually believe the Trump administration is not really concerned about birthright citizenship. I think they're more concerned with nationwide injunctions. I don't even think they care if they'll lose on birthright citizenship. I think the focus here is to stop allowing these nationwide injunctions that pretty much handicaps the executive branch. And as you heard there, Justice Jackson, she loves it. Now, here is Justice Thomas. I think if you listen carefully, you'll see he doesn't love it. Take a listen.
General, when were the first universal injunctions used?
We believe that the best reading of that is what you said in Trump against Hawaii, which is that Wirtz in 1963 was really the first universal injunction. There's a dispute about Perkins against Lucas Oil going back to 1940. And of course, we point to the court's opinion that reversed that universal injunction issued by the D.C. Circuit and said it's profoundly wrong. Now, if you look at the cases that the either party cite, you see a common theme. The cases that we cite, like National Treasury's Employment Union, Perkins against Lucas Oil, Frothingham in Massachusetts against Mellon, going back to Scott against Donald, and all of those are cases where the court considered and addressed the sort of universal, in that case, statewide issue of provision of injunctive relief. So when the court has considered and addressed this, it has consistently said you have to limit the remedy to the plaintiffs who are appearing in court and complaining of that remedy.
So we survived until the 1960s without universal injunctions.
That's exactly correct. And in fact, those were very limited, very rare, even in the 1960s. It really exploded in 2007 in our cert petition in Summers against Earth Island Institute. We pointed out that the Ninth Circuit had started doing this in a whole bunch of cases involving environmental claims.
Now, if you were listening carefully, Justice Thomas does not like nationwide injunctions because this country has survived without it. And the fact that it's been exploding over the past couple of decades is, I think, it definitely should be a topic of conversation. Listen, there's no question that a lower court judge has the authority to issue an injunction. Nobody's disputing that. But an injunction that applies to the entire country and not actually the state that the judge resides in, I think is definitely worthy of a debate, and I think should be ruled on by the Supreme Court, but we'll see what happens. Now, after all of this, CNN is reporting that the Supreme Court is extremely frustrated with nationwide injunctions. Take a listen.
What stood out most to you?
It's as if neither side has something that's really a winner right here, right now, Dana. You know, you have a Supreme Court that's been extremely frustrated by lower court judges in applying these universal injunctions so that these universal orders that would block a president's agenda. In this case, of course, blocking President Trump's effort to lift birthright citizenship. But as much as they're not crazy about that, I felt that Solicitor General John Sauer's argument really met a lot of resistance in terms of what he was trying to do, saying we want to come and challenge these injunctions. We want to be able to put at least part, if not most, of the policy in place to lift birthright citizenship. But they also seemed not quite receptive to do what the Trump administration wants to do at this point, whether they asked for more briefing on the merits question or they issued the most minimal order ruling possible. I'm not sure which way they're going to go.
And in other breaking news, CNN continues to promote Jake Tapper's shameless book about Biden's mental decline. And the way that they do that is they have been scheduling these interviews with prominent Democrat leaders and then catching them midway in the interview in regards to pressing them about their take on Joe Biden's mental decline and whether or not they've seen it themselves. Now, here is a prime example of that this morning, the governor of Michigan being pressed about this. Take a listen.
All right, I want to move to another topic, and that is my colleague's book with Alex Thompson on President Biden's physical and cognitive decline during his time in the White House. You were a co-chair of the Biden-Harris campaign. You stuck with Biden until he dropped out of the race. Given your position in the campaign, what signs of decline did you notice?
You know, I've not read the book. I can tell you this, that as the book reports, cabinet members didn't have access. That tells you that, as a governor in a state, halfway across the country who was working her tail off, 160 stops on a bus tour that I headlined through swing states. I was busy working. I was busy doing the connection and the voter registration. And so
you
I
didn't
can't
see signs
speak
of
to
decline?
that directly.
So you didn't see any.
I didn't see the president frequently, and I can tell you I can't speak to that directly.
Yeah, so I'm going to continue to show this because, guys, this is politics. They lie up and down, and they do it because they have to save themselves politically. You think they're going to come out and say publicly, oh, yeah, I did see his decline, when they were a surrogate for the president, including Kamala Harris during the election campaign? No way. Now, they may say it privately because everybody knows he was impaired, but to say it publicly on CNN just isn't going to happen.
Do you think Donald Trump would be president today if Biden had not run for re-election or dropped out earlier?
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I think that all of this is really, it's frustrating because, there are such huge issues that we have to tackle right now. But it does make me question a lot of things that I thought I knew over the course of the last year and a half.
Well, maybe it wouldn't be so frustrating, Governor, if you guys had, called out Joe Biden when you had the chance. But you look the other way. You act like he was mentally fit, sharp as a tack. And now you're in this position. And that's the irony of Democrats right now. Whatever they're dealing with that is terrible, they put themselves in this position. It's got nothing to do with President Trump. Now, here's Chuck Todd actually calling people like her out because he doesn't agree with this type of response. Take a look.
In many ways, I think this Biden book is only going to not just undermine Biden, but I think make it toxic for anybody that worked for Biden. Because then it becomes, where were you? How did you participate in the cover-up? Pete Buttigieg, this may mean something for you. You were a cabinet secretary. You're going to now tell us, yeah, I didn't have much interaction with him. Well, then why didn't you say something? I had a cabinet secretary tell me that. They had no interaction with him and wondered about that. But I think it's a question, anybody who worked directly for Biden. So Gina Raimondo, if she thinks about running for president, Pete Buttigieg, all of these cabinet secretaries are now going to have to answer for all of this. And I do wonder if it's going to make anybody that touches Biden persona non grata, not just anybody directly in the Biden world.
Okay, so I don't know what's worse. The fact that Democrats not only covered it up, but continue to deny that they covered it up. And they're also making money based on that cover up. And they're trying to, I guess, catch each other in lies in order to get some sound bites. I mean, it's crazy. But I want to hear from you guys about the stories in the comment section below. What about President Trump's trip to the Middle East? Do you believe it's been a true success and something historic when you compare it to Joe Biden? What about that judge out of Wisconsin who's claiming that she's not guilty and wants to use judicial immunity? And we also talked about how wholesale inflation is down, which is a great economic win. Let me know what you think about all of these stories in the comment section below. Now, last night, President Trump provided a huge tax update. He still wants to see a tax deduction on people who are taking out car loans for an American-made car. If you miss out on that story and more of what happened yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.